So I used to be in like this hot pursuit of the ultimate productivity system. I remember when I really started down this journey with intention was late 20s, and I started watching a lot of YouTube videos, started reading a lot of books and consuming content around the idea of productivity. It really wasn't something up to that point in my life that I'd been particularly interested in because I was working in these W-2s, I was working for other people, I was getting fired a lot. That wasn't going so good. But like I had this really unhealthy relationship with work in the sense that I viewed it as a necessary evil, something that you had to do to go make money, but that I never equated it with purpose or meaning or anything like that. And so I tried to avoid work as much as possible. And I tried to do the minimum amount of work when I was, collecting that W-2 paycheck. But when I started my first business, suddenly my relationship with work fundamentally changed because it became now this vehicle where my inputs and outputs were more closely correlated. So if I worked really hard, I busted my ass, I could reap the rewards of that. And I didn't have to be reliant on somebody paying me or having my earning potential capped or having a shitty manager who just didn't recognize my genius, like whatever that means. And so I started taking work more seriously, even though it was a window washing company. And so it didn't really fill me with purpose and meaning, but it gave me a path towards living my best life and being free and claiming control over my circumstances. And so at that time, I became very, very interested in the idea of productivity and really trying to unpack my biology of like, okay, what am I doing with my life so that I can get more out? Suddenly I was really enjoying work because it was something that I chose to do. And I was now trying to figure out, how do I do more of it? How do I do it better? And so I was looking at productivity systems, and I was just, I consumed a lot of information in this world of peak performance. And I remember getting kind of frustrated. I get excited about things like, oh, this new idea, I look at that idea and this concept. And I would start to incorporate these into my structure, my day, my habits, my routines. And I remember becoming really frustrated with myself because I would have all these great intentions and I have all these great ideas and I would execute them for a couple of weeks, but then like I'd stop using that tool or that resource or that journal or whatever it was. And so I was like, man, this isn't working for me. And what I came to realize is that like there was this gap between the motivation that I had initially to start using that tool and then the discipline necessary to continue using it. But even more so than that was there were these things that were working for me and I would use for a period of time, like 6 months, 9 months, a year, multiple years in some cases. Like meditation is a really good example of this. I meditated 400 days straight and it served me very, very well. But then one day I looked up and I realized like, I don't know if I need to be doing this right now because I don't know if it's having the same benefit anymore. And there was a point in my life where I was kind of like disappointed or I thought I was doing something wrong because I would pick up these tools and I would use them for a bit and then they would stop working. And what I came to realize only recently in the last few years is that because you are growing and evolving as an individual, as a human, the systems that worked for you yesterday might not continue working for you today, which creates this whole new piece of the puzzle that we have to solve for, which is we have to create a system that works for us now, but we have to continually be refining and revising that system as time goes on because you will inevitably change, and what worked to help you get here might not help you to get to where you're trying to go to. And so with that in mind, that actually gave me a little bit of peace and solace in my desire to go and consume and can like grab more pieces of puzzles and learn more about this system, that framework, this tool, this resource. And I gave myself permission because I recognize that it might be the new tool or the re-experiencing that tool again for the first time, or second time, third time, that now it might actually work for me. And so you have to be aware of your system, that it's not becoming a prison that you're just executing mindlessly. This is what gratitude journaling became for me. There's a lot of research that suggests gratitude leads to a 300% increase in productivity. And I thought, hey, that's great. And so you hear about, doing your gratitude journal in the morning. I've podcasted around this, I've written around this, and there is a lot of great benefits to that. But when we bastardize the process of gratitude when it just becomes a to-do, to be checked off. And that's what it became for me after a certain point. And I realized this is no longer serving me. It's time to discard this and maybe find a new tool, new system. And so I wanted to share all of that as a prelude up to a system that I've been experimenting with over the last, I would say, 2 weeks, and I've been finding it quite enjoyable. So I'm a big analog person. I love writing things down physically. I have used Asana, Notion, all these other digital tools for productivity, task management. Those are great, but I find something just so tactile and rewarding about physically writing something down into a notebook. So I've gone back to that over the last year more so than using the digital tools. I still use those in a lot of cases, especially where my team members are concerned. But more and more, I'm just doing stuff in journals. And recently I stumbled around upon the idea of, instead of writing with pen, now I love my pens, and particularly I like to write with my fountain pen. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my beautiful fountain pens. I love writing with pens. I got so many cool pens. I think they're really neat. But recently I stumbled upon the idea of writing with Sharpie. And writing with Sharpie specifically on like a 3x5 note card is really powerful, actually, because you can't afford to get too granular. You can only afford to put one or two, maybe three of the really big important things that you need to keep on top of your head. And so I find it really interesting sitting down to do my to-do list, my 3 to free every day, where I'm just trying to figure out what are those 3 tasks and then prioritize those, writing them down in Sharpie on a 3x5, nice and big, so that I can't make them tiny. I can't put other things in there. It just, I don't know, it hits different in my brain center, and I've been finding it incredibly rewarding. I don't know, there's something very gratifying about writing with a Sharpie big marker on a little piece of paper, so that you can see very clearly these are the 3 big things that you need to do today, or the one thing, or whatever. But you can't get too granular. You can't have a to-do list that spawns into a Hydra with 100 different heads. So yeah, try that out. Try Sharpie, try a journal. Like, constantly evolve, practice, and play with things. Understand that's part of the process, but that you also need to be aware when you're doing that at the expense of being just productive and executing a system. If you're spending more time refining the system than you are executing the system, you've inverted, and you need to fix that. So hope this brings you all some value. As always, I appreciate each and every single one of you for being here. I'll catch you guys in the next pod, but until then, stay hyper-focused, my friend.